This is why a lot of us are paying more in property taxes because 27,288 Cook County homeowners pay nothing. Now, what's interesting to me about this story is I reported uh, several weeks back, maybe it was last month, on an essay that Cook County Assessor Fritz Kaegi had put out that blamed a lot of the high property taxes we're not facing on the digital economy. The digital economy meaning when everybody's ordering their stuff from Amazon or Grubhub and they're not going to brick and mortar stores, there's no tax revenue collected from brick and mortar establishments. And as we know, Amazon doesn't pay taxes. So the costs in a community get passed on to escalating property taxes because some of the tax base in our communities has disappeared because businesses are going out of business and they're not generating the same revenues, especially during the pandemic, that they normally would being open, catering to walk-in customers and a regular traffic of customers. So this comes to us from the Sun-Times, which sheds some interesting light, although I think Cook County Assessor Kaegi's theory was sound in some ways. There's another side to the story of why property taxes are higher in regards to where they're not collecting them from. This comes from the watchdogs at the Sun-Times. Kaegi is giving tax breaks to veterans on pricey homes even though they don't qualify. Now, this is kind of a complicated story because property tax breaks are given to veterans, and I think justly so, with the sacrifices and service that our veterans provide us. I think that they do deserve breaks wherever they can get after coming back from combat. However, there are veterans who are married to spouses who earn a lot of money, live in the same property, and apparently because there's a disabled veteran in these marriage relationships, these properties don't pay taxes. And we're not talking about your average middle or lower class property owner. We're talking about people like Senator Tammy Duckworth. We recognize and appreciate her service. Senator Duckworth is married and lives in a home here in Illinois, and she and her spouse own, I believe, a house elsewhere. But they're not paying taxes on it. Let me get into the article. This comes from the Sun-Times, Lauren Fitzpatrick. Some get big tax breaks despite being ineligible. The Cook County Assessor says he's following the policy on the disabled veterans property tax exemption his predecessor set, and that was Joe Barrios, who was running roughshod through the tax assessor's office. Cook County Assessor Fritz Kaegi has been giving property tax breaks to some disabled veterans whose homes are too expensive to qualify them. One of them is a vet who got a 5-figure property tax break this year and just sold his Winnetka home for $4.5 million. Other veterans receiving similar tax breaks live in homes the assessor values at more than $1 million. A state law the Illinois legislature passed 6 years ago offers property tax breaks to disabled veterans who qualify. It wipes out the tax bills on their homes entirely if the Federal Department of Veteran Affairs certifies they are at least 70% disabled. The law puts a limit on how expensive a home can be to qualify for the break. It has to be an equalized assessed value of less than $250,000, which translates this year in Cook County to a market value of about $775,000. The county assessor determines the market value and the assessed value, and the state applies what's called a multiplier to equalize assessments from one county to another statewide. But in dozens of instances every year, Cook County has ignored the limit under former assessor Joe Barrios and now under Kaegi, a fellow Democrat who challenged and defeated him, promising tax reform, doling out these tax breaks to disabled vets living in homes too expensive to qualify under the Illinois law. As a result, those vets have gotten tax breaks they didn't qualify for, deeply discounting or erasing their property taxes by as much as $28,000 this year. That leaves other property owners to collectively make up the difference to fund school districts and other government taxing bodies. The number of ineligible homes getting those tax breaks has shot up under Kaegi, according to a Sun-Times analysis of property tax bills since 2015. Since Kaegi took office December 3rd, 2018, he's given 126 tax breaks to disabled veterans whose homes value exceed the limits spelled out in state law, shifting $1.7 million in taxes onto other property owners in Cook County. Barrios gave 38 tax breaks to disabled vets whose homes weren't eligible under the law, shifting $517,071 in taxes, the Sun-Times analysis found. For example, Cook County Assessor Fritz Kaegi gave the disabled veterans property tax break to the owner of this 12,000 square foot home, even though the value of his office put on the house was too high to qualify. That reduced the owner's property taxes this year by $17,533, cutting his bill to $49,889. He sold the 6-bedroom house over the summer for $4.5 million. In Winnetka, Kaegi gave the disabled veterans property tax break to the owner. Oh, I just reread that. The caption from the photo repeats itself. The homeowner, an Air Force veteran who manages investments for wealthy individuals, sold the 6-bedroom house 4 months ago for $4.5 million. Using an abbreviation for the term equalized assessed value, Kaegi's website says the tax break is available for disabled veterans whose homes have a total EAV of less than $250,000 for the primary residence. His office assessed the Winnetka home at $301,352 this year, which under the formula used for the tax calculations, the Illinois Department of Revenue more than tripled to come up with an equalized assessed value of $971,378. This math is making my head spin. Assessors in Chicago's Collier County say they would have disqualified the Winnetka property and any other home valued at more than $750,000 from getting the disabled vets exemption. Helen Krengel, DuPage County Supervisor of Assessments, says that's because she follows the rules set out by the State Revenue Department, which provides a standard application for the tax break. It's on their application as well, Krengel says. On the reverse side of it, it pretty clearly states that the EAV must be less than $250,000. Assessors in Will, McHenry, Kane, and Lake counties say they also disqualify applicants for the disabled vets exemption whose homes exceed that value, as set out in the legislation passed by the Illinois General Assembly. Then Governor Rauner, a Republican, signed the tax break into law, and his Revenue Department issued guidelines in 2016 for county assessors to determine who qualifies. The Revenue Department, now operating under Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker, says in a written statement, the county assessment offices should be following the laws as they are written. State Representative Michael Zalewski, Democrat of Riverside, who chairs the Illinois House Revenue Committee, says the disabled veterans tax break should be uniformly applied in all counties. There should be one standard. I don't think State Representative Michael Zalewski realizes, though, this is Crook County. And Crook County's motto should be rules for thee, not for me. Kaegi's office says it's continuing policies established by Barry. Yeah, he says this. He doesn't have to continue the policies, though. He makes the rules. So this bullshit of Kaegi passing the buck along to Barrios is just that. It's bullshit. He can follow the law as every other county in the state is following. But Kaegi's office says it's continuing policies established by Barrios to cut property taxes for all homeowners who have a disability rating from the VA of at least 30%, regardless of the home's value, but applies the tax break only for the portion of the home's value up to $250,000 of equalized assessed value, Kaegi spokesman Scott Smith says. Of the 49 homeowners, did you just bite me? Was that a little love bite? Or you don't like the story? Of the 49 homeowners who got the disabled veterans exemption this year on homes whose equalized assessed value topped $250,000, 34 received the same break the previous year. It was automatically rolled over under a state law that was passed because of the COVID pandemic. Now, there's previous Cook County Assessor Joe Barrios. To rescind this property tax relief from disabled veterans in the midst of a pandemic without prior notice to property owners would have been burdensome and likely generated legal challenges, as some have relied upon the assessor's longstanding application of the statute, Smith says. Okay, so I call bullshit on this also, because the assessed value is, what was it? Let me go back in the article. What was it? Over 200 and it's less than $250,000 is the ceiling for where the tax break should be applied, and they're giving it to people who've got multi-million-dollar homes. He says Kaegi also didn't want to change the policy during the pandemic. Well, I doubt that the owners of these homes are suffering that much, but what do I know? Smith's, while the rest of us are paying inflated property taxes for far lesser valued properties. Smith says Kaegi would like Illinois lawmakers to clarify the law regarding whether he should stop cutting taxes for disabled veterans whose home exceed the $250,000 figure. And he says the $1.7 million in taxes that other Cook County property owners are covering as a result doesn't add up much to their bills. The additional tax burden to non-veterans due to this ambiguous language amounts to pennies on the average tax bill, Smith says. The Revenue Department's guidance from 2016 appears straightforward on the matter, saying by statute, the EAV of the primary residence must be less than $250,000 to qualify for the disabled veterans exemption. It can't be any clearer than that. A financial manager by profession, Kaegi campaigned ahead of his... Now, here's the burn for everybody, right? Because I was a supporter of Fritz Kaegi because Barrios seemed so corrupt. We thought this candidate who championed progressive values was going to come in and reform things. A financial manager by profession, Kaegi campaigned ahead of his 2018 victory on promises of reform, writing in a candidate questionnaire, "My top priorities are to make our assessment system ethical, transparent, and fair. First of all, we want to run a model that would be more accurate and less regressive." Seeking re-election, Kaegi said in September that he's proud of our work transforming the old broken property tax system into one based on fairness, transparency, and ethics. In June, responding to a Sun-Times investigation, Kaegi acknowledged that his office had made numerous errors in calculating a different tax break. The senior freeze property tax exemption for homeowners over 65, whose income is under $65,000. At first, he blamed the county's decades-old mainframe computer for miscalculating breaks. He later chalked up the discrepancies to policy decisions made by his predecessors. See, that really doesn't hold weight for me also, or either. Because I wonder if he would acknowledge any of these problems if the Sun-Times hadn't done a watchdog investigation to expose all of this. How about that? Among the errors, senior freezes had been granted in some cases not to individuals, but to businesses which aren't eligible. His office also had frozen some property assessments based on the value of buildings that had been torn down and replaced with new construction. Responding to other county officials who questioned the validity of property assessments ahead of preparing the tax bills that were due October 1st, Kaegi told them in July that we have ensured that properties with any exemptions, not just the senior freeze, are receiving the correct exemption on the second installment tax bill. Among the homes that got disabled veteran tax breaks from Kaegi this year, despite being valued higher than the law allows them to qualify. How about this? The owner of a 44th floor Gold Coast condo that he bought for $1.8 million in 1999 has received the disabled veterans tax break for 6 years under Barrios and Kaegi, despite not being eligible for it because his condo's EAV ranged from $445,754 to the current figure of $636,205. This year, the tax break saved him $17,278, a 40% discount on his total tax bill of $43,968. All right, so $17,000 is a substantial amount, and when you realize that this break has been granted to, I don't know if the article says how many veterans this has been granted to that are above the bracket. It's a substantial amount of money that the county's not collecting that is passed on to the rest of us, who, might I add, are struggling. An Oak Park homeowner who in 2018 bought his 5-bedroom house out of foreclosure for $657,000 has gotten a break for 2 years. This year, the disabled veterans exemption saved him $28,313, leaving him with a tax bill of $1,531 on his home, which has an EAV of $273,522. A couple living in a downtown high-rise unit on the Chicago River that they bought for $1.3 million in 2002 have been getting the disabled veterans exemption for 3 years despite never qualifying. So here's another thing I think that it's interesting that they should factor into this. Look, as I said at the top of this segment, I have no beef. I mean, I have nothing but respect for our disabled veterans, and yeah, they should get breaks. But for $1 million plus properties, when they are married to spouses who are also earning money in these properties that they co-own and share. Something stinks with the calculations and how they allow people to qualify for this tax break. I would say that a single disabled veteran should rightly qualify for this break, but when you've got a married household and you've got properties that exceed the limits, something stinks. The Sun-Times reported last weekend that, okay, here's the number, 8,542 homeowners in Cook County qualified for a tax break this year under the disabled veterans exemption. So that's 8,542 homeowners that probably on the average are saving $17,335 to $28,313. You multiply those factors for the 8,000 plus homeowners qualifying for this exemption, and you understand why everybody else's property taxes have increased, including 6,083 homeowners whose tax bills were reduced to zero. Among the homeowners exempt from paying any property tax as a result of the disabled veterans exemption are U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth and former Chicago Alderman James Baker, who, because of war injuries in Iraq and Vietnam, have both been classified as at least 70% disabled by the VA. They and others will continue to pay no property taxes as long as the VA certifies their disabilities and the assessor values their homes under the state's laws limits, without factoring in the fact that they're married to able-bodied spouses and they own properties that are far beyond the limits that this break is supposed to serve. Former State Representative Jack Franks, who drafted the bill to erase property taxes for disabled veterans, says he never intended for the law to give tax breaks to people who owned homes worth more than $250,000, regardless of the equalized assessed value. Franks, who left the legislature in 2016 to serve as chairman of the McHenry County Board and lost a re-election bid last November, says he didn't realize his legislation opened the program to those with high-priced homes. Ready for this quote? "I'm an idiot. It's all my fault," Frank says. "People who can afford a $600,000 house don't need a tax break. There are so many loopholes in this. I never intended for people who are living in $600,000 homes to avoid paying property taxes. I don't think it's fair because everyone else is paying for it." So, I'm going to go to the live chat now and hear what the rest of you think, as this is an interactive episode tonight, celebrating our 1,000 subscribers. Let's see here. Oh, God, I've got a lot of comments in here. Backtracking really quickly before we cover the comments on this story regarding the Chicago 48-hour film project. The elements and requirements for this year's 48-hour film project are on the website. So you can go there. You can go to those screenings linked below and find out more what allowed the films to qualify. So, E. Heller, thanks for joining tonight, because rich people aren't paying enough. Oh, my goodness. You know what? E. Heller has just entered the broadcast backstage, but let me get to a couple. Actually, I'm going to bring E. Heller on and we'll pop up some of your comments in a live chat. Ed, thank you for joining us. I know this is a sore spot for you.
I am not E. Heller.
I thought it was E. Heller.
Name, sir. My name, sir, is Peg Leg, and I am here with my chocolate cow, Bessie.
Do you have any comments? We're trying to do a serious story here, and Peg Leg Sullivan shows up.
Well, I was listening to your story about property taxes, and it had occurred to me, in all 150 years, I have never gotten a tax break for property. I suppose Bessie, I could probably get a Bessie exemption, but I'm not really sure, because I have a leg made of Peg.
How did you lose that leg? Was it in a war? Maybe you do qualify. And you just didn't know.
I did. I lost it in one of them first or second. I think it was the first war, whichever war that was.
Must have been the Civil War, because it was before 1871.
We had somebody said, "Hey, we're getting a bunch of people together, and we're doing a war thing, and you're in." And I
doing
said,
a war thing.
Okay.
So, Love Tagore has a great comment here. Yeah, so you just hook up with a veteran, and you don't pay taxes. How about that? It's like people from overseas coming here for a green card. You just hook up with someone to get your green card.
Yeah, well,
You know,
I guess I technically am a veteran, and Bessie has not yet paid a dime in taxes, so it's worked out pretty good for her.
no matter what, the only time large corporations and religions will ever pay taxes is when they're poor, can't afford to pay them anymore, and there will always be poor people. I would also say when the pitchforks and the torches and the guillotines come out, Art, that might be the only time they'll realize they've got to pay taxes because they're parasites on the host, which is the citizens of this country. What's disgusting about religious belief is that, yes, the poor will give it all because that's humble. It's the essence of Jesus, martyrs, Buddhas, etc. Good point. But what now is being taught...
What's that, Bessie?
But what now is being taught in religious conservative homes is that there's nothing wrong with being rich. No joke. That's why that could explain why so many believe in Trump. Love Tagore, you bring up a very, very good point. Rich people, being rich is worshipped in this country. And I find with extremely hyper-religious people, they feel that being blessed with riches means that God is blessing them. Therefore, there's a connection between being rich and their religion or what they believe in. And I'm not going to knock religion here. I'm going to go on the record and state I'm agnostic. I was raised Greek Orthodox Christian when I was a young boy, and I think it was very, very valuable to give me a moral compass. But I think as I got older, I just realized I kind of let go of all the literal interpretations of religion, and I feel I'm spiritual. I don't think I'm an atheist, but I do think that I have a much more agnostic view of faith, given that a lot of faiths kind of aspire to the same thing. But especially in extreme evangelical Christianity, and I hope I don't offend anybody here, but it seems that, being rich is worshipped. And it blew me away when so many religious Christian people supported Trump because he's such an antithesis to what I was raised to understand Christianity is about. Humility, service, treating other people fairly, equitably. I mean, Trump is like everything that's not. So it's just interesting when you see how religious beliefs and the thought that God has blessed you because you're rich and you have to get rich to reach some kind of blessing from God. It's a weird whole other conversation to go into. Oh, and Love Tagore adds, so at the end of the day, you just end up worshiping money. Yep. Hey, Gene. Everyone, good evening or morning. Well, it's evening over here. Welcome to the show. Oreo wants to know when he's getting his tax break. Cat labor has value. That's true. And Oreo does participate a lot in the show. Back to commenting on the story, though. Let's see here. Art Medina. I'm thinking of buying property around my neighborhood, but factoring in the property taxes on any property is sometimes what kills the hopes of buying any property, whether it's high or low. I saw a really interesting story, Breaking Points this afternoon with Crystal Ball and Sagar, where they were talking about how millennials now that can't afford to buy their own homes are finding friends to buy a home with together so that they can get into a property. It's like roommates purchasing a property. I don't know how that would work if roommates ended up deciding they want to move when they're invested in a mortgage, but the cost of property, let alone the property taxes, is what is completely eliminating or preventing anybody from achieving the American dream as we know it. Tax reform in this instance means more tax breaks for the wealthy, as usual, by our elected officials. Thank you, Gene. If you allow an elderly person or a veteran to live in a property you own, then you should get a tax break. Hey, how about that? A vet dating app would be popular in Chicago. Yeah, that would get popular real fast. I'm glad to know I understand you. Art, the rich never have to try and survive. Being poor and not wealthy is always about survival. Oh my goodness. Pegleg has departed and E. Heller has joined us. Hey, Ed. Thanks.
Yeah, I was. I've been trying to log in since like 7 o'clock, and the system kept saying somebody else was already in there, and then I go onto the live stream, and that peg leg jerk is in there.
That asshole peg leg just had to like to intervene on what was supposedly a serious story, but that's okay. The entertainment value was definitely worthwhile, and I love having Pegleg on the show. But let's get back to the seriousness of this, though, because you are a property owner, and we've talked about this also. I'm a property owner. I have a 2-flat. I have a tenant. It's a family property. You have a condo. What are some of your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, the last time we had a conversation about this, I was talking about how they had just reassessed like everyone's property tax values, and it was like a 30% jump or something like that since the previous year. And I'm like, well, if you're reassessing and there's that much of a difference from where it was, and if that tells us that either you were way off or you've gone way overboard with your adjustment in 1 year, or
you pay more in property taxes because 27,288 Cook County homeowners pay nothing.
Exactly. And that's a problem. I mean, the simplest terms, basically rich people need to start paying more in property taxes is what it is.
Absolutely.
And of course they're utterly resistant to that. And they have,
because they've got us to shoulder. They've got the rest of us fools and schmucks who don't have lobbyists influencing our elected officials to burden the taxes. That's what it always comes down to.
Yeah, I don't know what else to add to it. All I know is my property taxes went way up.
Yeah, ours did too.
And I'm waiting for the hammer to fall on that, because some people are paying a mortgage and it's rolled into escrow, which means that their mortgage servicer pays their property taxes. So when the new ones roll in, the mortgage servicer will send you a notice typically that your entire monthly payment is going to be going up. And then you have to pay attention and make sure that if you have to make an adjustment for that, that you're not, accidentally underpaying or overpaying, depending on how your taxes get adjusted. But for more people, they're going to end up having to pay more per month. And what do you do when you have limited budget? You got to find more. You got to find a way to squeeze more blood from the stone that you don't have.
I don't know, JR, if you live in Chicago, but we're way ahead of you. We've been calling it Cook County for decades.